Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Sesh. I'm still practicing. Good morning, Magnus. Good morning, everyone.
Yes.
Today, you know what? We're going to talk about continual improvement. And why is it that we say continual instead of continuous? I don't know, honestly.
Yeah. We actually say both. You see both flying around, and I think continuous is still the most used. But there's a difference between the two. And like I just said, I think it's one of the beautiful things of the English language, like these small little differences. So continuous is basically, it doesn't stop. Continuous is just, we start improving, continuous improvement, and we never stop improving, which on its own is not bad, right?
Mm-hmm.
But continual, I would say, slows that down. Continual is about gradual improvement. It's about iterative improvement. Continual is not that straight line going up. Continual is these small steps that we take. And the continual is in the pause moment where we give it time to settle in, to cut out the variance that we need. So we make a first gradual step. We give that new situation some time to settle, and then we take the next step. So that's the difference. Continuous is straight up without stopping, basically. And continual is that gradual stepping up. And that's the difference between.
See, that's interesting. And I noticed just by you explaining that, because I honestly didn't know, I find myself kind of associating or attaching. I notice that I'm slowing down inside. Just by those words.
Mm-hmm.
But why do we care?
About the difference between the two, or about continual improvement?
About continual improvement. Why is it important? Because I was working as a manager, and then you get the employee surveys, and one of the strongest thing measured in me was challenge the status quo, or in other words, there's something in me. And ultimately, you might think that it's about trimming the process, make it more efficient, more effective. And I used to think that way too, like looking upon things. It's like, this could be better, couldn't it? But I by the end of the day, eventually, some point in my life is, well, I enjoy realizing things. It gives me energy. But ultimately, it's for people and it's for me, because it will be better for us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not like creating money for shareholders necessarily. The continual improvement is something else. It's pro-human, to me at least.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, honestly, I want to go into that very briefly. I think in the end, it also is about shareholders.
Yeah, they are who
it is about
as well. Oftentimes,
it is about value delivery, which will trigger profit delivery, which will make our shareholders happy. But it's by people and for people.
Thank you.
And we're gonna repeat the sentence as a mantra, right? It's in the end, it's all about people. I think
Thanks.
that continual improvement, you can look at it from all different angles, right? You can do it on product or service or whatever you're doing. You can do it on your process, but there's also the people part. How do we interact? How do we agree? How do we talk to each other? How do we take decisions? And that is, you could maybe link that a bit to process, but there's a lot of human factor in there, I think. And I was really triggered by what you said, Magnus. It's about coming in somewhere and seeing all these improvement opportunities and challenging, and that's exactly what it is for me. It's about challenging the status quo. It's about breaking rules and making them better, to quote the Be More Pirate book. It's but the thing is, like, there's this Apple commercial from 1997 from the Think Different campaign, which I still think it's one of the most. It's written by a marketing agency, but it's one of the most brilliant pieces of text in my life. I have it on my wall here. I put the poster here on my wall, and it ends with a brilliant sentence. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do. And that's a driving sentence. That's a driver for me. But also, by making work better, we make people happier in what they do, and so we make people happier. So we make the world better. That's kind of the idea for me in it. So what drives my passion, I could say, in a sense, for continual improvement is that we're gonna make people happier, and by that make the world better.
So now you're booting me up and calming me down. Interestingly, yeah. There's some helpful reminders in there. The world is moving, and there's a lot of information in anyone's brain. But to me, there's some profound statements in there. The things you just said. I feel it's kind of like a research area for me to build a model of all this. Because nothing that exists in any company is done without humans. Not even if it's mass production and robots. Someone designed that floor. And when we find that we are in these large factories, be it the factories or be it like knowledge work, that also starts to work on us. So we influence. But if we're going to continue improvement, we might observe the work, the process, the work we do, like in software development or mass production or services. And it seems to me like, but what if we are always mindful of also including ourselves in the system thinking? I'm a little curious about that. Then what? And is it really possible to change the world? Now, if we're crazy enough to think it might be.
Yeah. Yeah, one little nudge at a time, I guess. But what really triggers me here, Magnus, is let's say we do systems thinking, like how all different elements in a system interact with each other and influence each other, right? What you hardly see the human factor in there. I think that the great systems thinkers put them in there, put that human factor in. Think about what does that do for people's motivation? What does that motivation do for the interaction between each other? What does that interaction mean for the output and the outcomes that we deliver? So I think it's a really important part of it. If I think about that, when I think about improving myself or continual improvement, my human connection with that is, how do we deal with change? Even the smallest improvement means change for people. So how do we deal with change? What does this change? What's the influence or the impact on people from this change, even how small it is? I think that's a big one as well.
It's like I find myself imagining that we observe in third-person view, like in a spectator view on a football pitch. We start to see ourselves, but not on the surface level, perhaps. Maybe we have a model. To me, neuroscience is my thing, because it explains so much. and it kind of opens up a door to be more. It's useful for the purpose of system thinking, for the purpose of continual improvement. It makes a difference. For people, by people. Love that one. I mean, for instance, stress, right? So if I'm in fight flight mode, this brain has shifted way of operation. No longer do I have the cognitive functions. Hormone has shifted me to have blood in my big muscles and stuff. So if I'm in that mode, well, okay, has it happened in modern work? Oh yeah, you bet. Is there a real life threat? No, but it's the biology. That's the way we behave. Now, what if? Now, and I'm asking a question. Have you seen a system thinking diagram where we have that force field in it? I haven't. And yet, my observation is that it so totally changes everything. That's one of the bigger permeating force fields or factors for what's happening at work. Fight flight modes, because then we don't listen to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We become narrow-minded. we focus on survival kind of, or just winning. And so deep, thoughtful reflection, calm, it's totally absent.
It even makes me, when you do a systems thinking exercise, there's no color coding, right? There's just
observe
the elements and the arrows and the pluses and the minuses, if you want. And what if we would use a color for the human factor? I'm just thinking out loud. Just to put emphasis on it. And then at that moment, it will become a new habit and it will seamlessly integrate in it. But I think highlighting that would be creating that consciousness on that human factor. I think is a really good, could be a really good idea.
It's my purpose in life to try to figure that model out to offer.
Mm-hmm.
Opening up that box of humans and have it inclusive in the system's thinking and how we build companies. See, we want to produce great results. Of course we do. And so we focus on possibility or problems of things. And oftentimes, though, we forget about the humans. But I'm here to say, well, of course, I care about humans like an ethic or moral stance. But even if you were kind of a psychopath, if you really wanted to create great stuff, you would open up that box because it will produce better results. So even if you honestly are not able to feel that you care about people, you should, like respect for people, like in Toyota, one of the pillars of lean. What if we unpack respect of people to mean how we work from a neuroscientific point of view, or like in Scrum, in a retrospective, we focus also on people. Now, what if we try to pierce into people more deeply, like possibly with the neuroscientific point of view?
Mm-hmm.
What about cognitive biases? What about understanding how we operate under stress? What about understanding the difference between listening shallow and listening deeply? What about groups? What about knowing how much status and ranking, if ambiguous or changing, is activating amygdala? What about knowing about us and thems and how it shifts how we think about other people and how we collaborate with them or not? These are huge force fields, and they are subconscious and automated, so they are not part of a system thinking.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. How does that land in you?
It lands absolutely. It's maybe it's an under highlighted skill or knowledge for a lot of people. Like, I mean, we've talked about neuroscience a lot in our recordings, and my knowledge and understanding of it is still touching the tips of the mountains or the iceberg, or whatever you want to call it, and you're a bit deeper in it. But it's the learning thing, right? To be able to apply it, we need a bit of at least the basic knowledge about it, and then we can create that muscle memory to incorporate it in our thinking. So I think it's all about how do we create that habit to think about that? Like, I was talking to a colleague yesterday who was talking on about a transition, a change in the area that she worked in. One of the issues she was facing was exactly that loss of status. That there were a few people in there that had status loss, and that obviously from what I got from her story, that was, for me, seemed like the root problem.
Oh,
but put that in a systems thinking diagram. But then, if you don't know about that, how our brain is triggered by status loss, for example, which I only learned about a short while ago from talking to you, you don't make that reflection, right? It's and so maybe it's a lot of words to come to the question, like how do we get that in there? It's
yes, you could. I I totally go into a rabbit hole of why and understanding why deeply, like the end of that. And here's the thing, though, what and how you might want to, what would you like to do, and how do you do it? That's kind of much easier. You don't have to understand all pieces of neuroscience, for instance. But if you're finding yourself and your team to be able to calm down, to start like in a retrospective, we are going to assume that everyone did their very best in that moment. Why is that? Well, that's because then we can relax and explore it. Okay, cool. But you don't have to remember that. Just be that. Calmness, curious, exploring. You will get there. Those feedback loops you get is going to get you there. But in my experience, if you are stressed out and doesn't engage in that calm, exploration thinking, we don't really get to it. We don't get to that breakthrough.
I really love what you just said, and then I'm triggered by the balance. I think the explorative thinking gets us to the core.
Yeah.
But the explorative thinking takes time, and we tend to not take time. Yeah, but I think it's a really big one, right?
Yeah, that's the irony.
We tend to not take time, and it has to go fast, and we have to analyze it quickly and try. And sometimes we have to just take a decision and go forward, right? So find that balance between when do we slow down enough to explore it, and accept that the solution will be, let's call it midterm, long term, because we want to explore it. And when do we maybe jump to a conclusion while being conscious of the assumption that we make and take a step forward just because we need to take a step forward. And I think that's also a reflection moment. If we link that back to continual improvement, I think that's a reflection point as well. Like, at what point do we need to take a step? It's bad enough now, it hurts us enough, so we need to take a step forward, or it hurts us enough, so we want to take some time to explore it properly before we take a step forward. I think it's not an easy one.
Wow, I have a mind map exploding in my brain. But I have some people with me, at least two. Kahneman, Nobel Prize winner, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow. And that book is about economy and the crisis in US, but the first half of that book, as I remember it, is a lot about cognitive biases. And explain how do we collectively become so stupid? Forgive me, but it's because we didn't really think things through, because we engaged in the brain, the fast thinking, the habitual. Then I have Mike Rother with me, and he has researched Toyota, and he has something he called to practice scientific thinking as a habit, because he says we can, but it's not our default mode of operation. But you can practice it. It will become like a new pattern. And I remember him saying to slow down, to say, I don't know. See, that opens up a space. Yeah. Continual improvement. What is the state of minds? What are the conditions you might want to create so people can get into that mode? Because we can, right? as a leader, as a manager, as a scrum master, as a team member, how can we bring the state of minds to that place? You know what I'm talking about. If you're viewing this, you know what I'm talking about. You remember those moments when that happened. And you remember and you see, if you're in a busy workplace, it doesn't happen. And so consider that it might possibly just be because you're not calm, you're not mindful, you're not relaxed, you're not using the best of the brain. But you could.
I'm thinking about how would we wrap this? How would we bring this all together now? How would we wrap this up?
I will confess that even though it might seem that I know a lot, or some, I still kind of feel that I'm in the research mode. It's still like I don't have it crystallized just yet. It feels to me like I still need to practice to understand or have a useful model for all this.
Mm-hmm.
But just by having this conversation, surely, potentially, I am moving forward. But it seems to me also that if someone or somewhere these models were created or more highlighted, it truly would make a big difference for all types of work.
And there I agree. It's it's what I talk about a lot when I can. It's about for me it boils down to a sentence, which is continual improvement as a habit.
Mm-hmm.
How do you make that a habit? And then on all levels. So service, product, process, people. How do you make that thinking a habit?
Seems to me that both you and me enter the mode where we are starting to, it's not entirely clear. It's like that moment where you would like to sit and think for a moment, but we're recording a podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I make that up, that we enter the state where, this is really interesting. What does it mean? I need to gather my thoughts here. It's a big map. Might I need a bit of tools to start drawing things? I kind of recognize that as a place of learning and insight. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It absolutely is.
We are experiencing continual improvement, and we are transparent with we haven't understood just yet. Not entirely.
Yeah. So maybe this is just our wrap, right? If I'm really wondering if you're listening, or if you or viewing this, what does it trigger in you? Like, what are these thoughts triggering you? What does continual improvement mean? How do you see that? What explorations from what we've just talked about do you want to make on this? And that's my invitation. Let us know.
This was truly enjoyable. I'm in the place of unknowing. I love that. Then I'm learning. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you all viewers if you view this one. I hope you felt a service as well.
Have a great day, everyone.